Hello and welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst of horror films of all time and have a lovely chat about them, and sometimes talk to people that are behind the making of some horror films. And for this bonus episode, I am here to do just that today. I'm joined not by my usual co-host Ben, but by a very special guest, Owen Llewelyn, star of the upcoming independent horror film, The R.I.P Man. Owen, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. I spoke to your friend, collaborator, writer of the R.I.P. Man, Reese, about the project that's coming up. He was good enough to share some footage with me of the film already, of you in action. So talk to me about the little before we get into a bit more about you, talk to me about the premise of the R.I.P. Man. What's the elevator pitch? Anyone who hasn't heard of it already?
Yes, so it's about a serial killer who has a unique dental disorder where he's missing all his teeth. It's called anodontia, and I hope I pronounced that right. He was he was born of it from birth, and so yeah, he has the inability to grow teeth, and he's targeting this group of friends. He has his reasons, but it's a mystery throughout the film, and each victim he finds, he dismembers their mouth and takes a tooth and places it in this mouth guard he wears, which has the words RIP on. And he's creating his own set of teeth out of one per victim. And
Ah,
yeah, the film's premise is finding out who this guy is, why the friends don't realize it's this particular person straight away, so they're all accusing each other. There's a detective trying to figure this out too, who's one of the central parts of the film. And yeah,
okay,
it's
cool. So you've got some slasher type murders, you've got some murder mystery, you've got some detective work in there. Sounds like it's a big project.
yeah, it's got a lot going on in the story, and obviously that there is reasons to what he's doing, and there's reasons for the certain set of people he's going for, and
Very
there's a
interesting.
plot that unfolds, and it should be
I
very
I
interesting.
actually learned a little bit about Anodontia very recently, completely at random in preparation for
Oh,
this. I was in a conversation with a friend about it. Shout out, Becky. Um, do you know there's also an opposite condition where babies are sometimes born with full sets of teeth?
I had no idea, but that's really interesting.
So, sequel, if you're listening, Reese, let's talk.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean that sounds like an interesting and deep plot. And how did you become attached to the film? Have you worked with Reese before?
Never worked with Reese before. Jamie Langland's the director. I'd worked with him a couple of times. I first met him shooting a film called A Prelude to Fear, where I had a small part in it. And then he was friends with a good friend of mine, and I sort of got to know him socially and worked with him in a couple of other jobs as well. And then randomly, around about July time this year, I just got a Facebook message from him with the picture. Like, I'm sure you've seen the artwork with the,
Hmm.
the drawing R.I.P. Man. He just sent me that picture and said, "Would you be interested in playing the title role in this film?" And they sent me the script. I had a look through it, and I was like, as a big horror fan, I was like, absolutely, and yeah, I think he just when he got given this, well, decided with Reese they were going to make the film, I think Jamie probably just racked his brains with people he knew already that might be suitable for the role. And I'd,
How did you take this news? So I was like, right, we've got this horrible bloke who goes around pulling people's teeth out, and I thought of you.
I'm so used to it. I mean, obviously, being like a tall, bald man, like you get like typecast to a certain extent. And yeah, I've played with quite a few villains over the time. And also, I think one of the reasons he might have thought of me was I used to work in like a horror attraction for quite a few years where I
Oh,
was like
really?
jumping out at tourists dressed up as a zombie, scaring them. So yeah, I kind of had experience playing sort of, well, scary roles. So
Oh, so you've been there. So that was your was was that your first horror role before you got behind the camera or in front of a camera rather?
um, I guess. Well, no, I was in a horror film in 2010, but it never got released,
Ah,
unfortunately.
okay.
It was like, yeah, it was a shame because it got almost finished, but then there was some post-production difficulties, and yeah, the
The
director got
perils
on
of
board with it.
the perils of independent filmmaking, hey? You're out when you're out.
But I was a
So
killer in that too, so like,
okay, so everyone who's listening, I've only met Owen a few minutes, but he seems very nice. So I don't, so this is where you bring acting to the skill. So, Owen, talk to me a little bit about how, your background with horror, if you will. So you said you're already a horror fan.
yeah.
What got you what you got you into it? What gave you the bug to start with?
Um, I guess so. Yeah, I became a bit of a film geek when I was sort of about 12 years old. I
Mhm,
got really into like watching as much as I can. And then I randomly just watched like Candyman on TV. And I remember that's absolutely making me feel so on edge. And
mhm.
some of the tension in that film, I think it was a new feeling that I'd got from films. And before then, I wasn't sure if I liked horror. I don't think I had that much interest in it. But as soon as I saw that, I almost did a 180 and got addicted to it.
Okay.
And then my mum was a big horror fan and had like rows and rows of VHSs recorded off the TV of like all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Halloween films, Friday the 13th, a bunch, all the sort of
All your
mainstream horrors
classics
you could
and
think of.
all
Yeah,
classics with like a really unique silhouette of a villain as well, like an iconic boogeyman. So
yeah,
maybe subconsciously that has come to you and come full circle.
quite possibly. I mean, I've certainly seen enough of films around that vein. Yeah, and so I started just rattling through these films, and then like obviously I saw things like Scream as well, sort of came out at a similar time, and that was the film I got obsessed with as a yeah as a
Yeah.
teenager, and yeah, I guess I've been a fan ever since. It's
I think
been
the
sort of like my go-to genre too.
I think the Candyman around age 12 is like is probably quite a unique and shaping experience because I think when you're around that age, you're at an age where you're like, oh, this isn't real, this is a film. But also you're a bit like, but though, but is it though? That is definitely the Candyman around that age is definitely one I can imagine you having to like lie in bed at night thinking about, oh, this film that's definitely not real with your eyes wide open, not thinking about the Candyman as hard as you can.
Yeah, I think it's a good age. I mean, obviously it's not relevant to the ratings, but I think it's almost a good age to watch horror because yeah, you're not jaded enough to to not be actually scared and tense and on edge about what's going to happen to these characters. And yeah, because I found like as soon as I got really into horror, I suddenly got a bit hardened to it and just
Yeah.
didn't. I don't know. I enjoy it, but in a different way where I enjoy watching it rather than being really really worried about these characters anymore. I don't know. That doesn't that
Yeah,
really
I
happens.
mean, yeah, I think you're right. When you're watching these things as a teenager or as a kid, even if the BBFC would not agree that they're suitable for you, it is nice to have that pure terror. Nowadays, meet Freddy Krueger. Least meeting him is indicative of I'm properly asleep. I'm having a nice night's rest. Chance to be a fine thing. Um, so and then when is that obviously is that what shaped maybe your interest in acting as a career, that love of film that you developed as a child?
Absolutely. As far as like love of film in general, for
Hmm.
sure. I round about the same time, like when you get to yeah year 8 at school, they suddenly like separate all the subjects, and yeah, there's a allotted drama time, and I just realized how much I enjoyed it there, and I was getting good compliments from the teachers, so and suddenly my 12-year-old brain was just like, oh, this could be what you want to do for a living because I'd never really thought as a kid like anything that I wanted to do. And then this was the first thing that I was just like, oh wow, I'd love to do this. I'd love to focus on, yeah, this is a career. And
Oh, that's great. That's really interesting. Like it must be great to like have even at such a young age that idea. Oh, this is something I could really enjoy and do for my life. Brilliant.
yeah, and the passion's never really died. I mean, I've had a very on-off career, but like in the sense of sometimes I'll have a year or two out of acting completely. I hadn't acted all year before Jamie contacted me about this film, but
But
yeah, it
you
just
say on and off though,
I
and
love
I
it
was
when I'm doing it. I love it.
I was checking out the backgrounds that you played some fairly, in some fairly iconic roles. I've seen a little bit of Shakespeare to your name. I've seen some adaptations of Sherlock Holmes characters to your name as well. You are a Baskerville, perhaps, in a Sherlock adaptation?
Um, I was, yeah, it was a web series, and I was like the main villain of the episode. Yeah, I was one of the character. Yeah, I was a character who was kind of a flawed villain, who was someone who was trying to get revenge for a wrongdoing on him, and then Sherlock Holmes kind of ends up talking sense to him. It was really nice. I don't think it's up anymore, which is a shame because I actually was really, yeah, I was really quite proud of that, and don't have a copy anymore
Oh,
because
we'll
it was when they
manifest
said
it.
the
When we
guy
talk
took it
about
off.
it enough, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, I was actually like, I quite enjoyed that, and occasionally we go back and watch it, and then yeah, one day I looked for it, and it was just not on YouTube anymore, and I was just like, oh, it's a shame.
Oh, very. So let's talk then about the R.I.P. Man. I understand how you got into it, and we had the little premise of what's going on. So when you play the R.I.P. Man, it sounds like he's a more complex villain than just a guy that likes killing people. How do you like get into that character? Did you have sketches that you then went? How much of it is from the notes that are given to you by the creative team, and how much of it have you brought to the character yourself in bringing him to life?
I mean, I didn't actually have that many notes beyond the script. Obviously, there's a lot of details about how the character behaves in the actual screenplay itself, which obviously I took on board. The only things that Reese really, because I didn't meet Reese until the day of production, and obviously the character's his creation. Um, the things he told me was he wanted elements of Nosferatu and
Mhm.
elements of the Ripper from Last Action Hero in it. Sort of, and so I tried to sort of com like yeah, incorporate both of them, especially with movement and yeah, like the movement of some of Nosferatu from the 79 Klaus Kinski one,
Mhm.
and then obviously like the visceral kind of way he attacks his what's the right word, victims.
Yeah.
Um, the visceral way he attacks his victims, kind of like when the Ripper's like holding the child, and yeah, the way he's like quite aggressively expressionate, and yeah. So I tried to take aspects from both of them. Beyond that, the character building was more just trying to think what was this guy thinking, and I feel like there's obviously revenge on his mind, but a lot of it is he kind of he's really enjoying getting that revenge too, and he
Mhm.
really want and I think because he has this goal of getting all these teeth, that's the moment that he's really happy about. Like once I try to incorporate the fact that when he does get to kill them, he's at his happiest because he gets that tooth, and that's his goal, is to get this collection of teeth from the victims, and with purpose, obviously, and with purposes of revenge while doing it. Like I don't know, like the Predator's set of trophies when he
Yeah.
collects the
Oh,
gold.
so yeah, so it
Like
looks like you've tapped into lots of different of the favorite horror tropes. I think the trophies is a great idea, and we see it across lots of serial killer media as well, right? Those, when the detective walks into that orgy of evidence room with all of the trophies from the previous kills and everything happens. When people see you as the R.I.P. man on screen, what is it that you hope they will find from the villain? Do you want them to be scared? Do you want them to feel that there's some sympathy behind him? What would you hope that when an audience finally get to sit and watch this movie, that they will take away from the screen?
I mean, I don't think he's really looking for sympathy as a character. Like, I'm not him, but I don't think I'm looking for a sympathetic edge to the character. I think obviously there is a background and to be how he is, but I think he's far too long gone to be saved. And yeah, I think the goal is for the audience to
Be scared of
him
him.
as a
Be
monster, and
Yeah.
he's yeah. There's not a lot of humanity left in him. I don't think, even though he was a person, obviously at one point. Like like I don't think there's a lot left in there for the audience to sympathize with. They might think that's tragic that he is the way he spent his childhood and stuff, because there is some unearthing of that throughout the story, but yeah, he's
Yeah.
too long gone. I think
Yeah.
you want to be
Like so
on you
yeah,
want to be on the
no
good
one's going to
guy
be
side of
talking
the
him off
film, I
this ledge
think.
or trying to
Yeah,
reason with him as they go through at in a big confrontation, right?
yeah. I don't think there's many shades on with the other characters, in the sense that he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the,
There's no like, well, you guys have done something wrong as well. Pointing the finger at me. Think of the three pointing at yourself. None of that. He's the bad guy.
yeah.
Okay, so tell me how it's been filming because I know you're in production as we speak right now, correct? You've done some filming already. We've seen some test footage. How's the experience been with the rest of the team?
It's been great so far. It's been really like the filming's been so smooth. Like Jamie's got a real like has a really controlled set and got a really good team working on the film. So it's been a really pleasant experience for me so far. I've done two scenes so far. I'm because obviously like my character isn't appears when there's trouble.
You appear sparingly, right? You're not having the round table discussions with the rest of the people and sharing masses of dialogue with them.
No, I'm doing my next scene actually this Sunday, but yeah, it's been great so far. Like that first shoot we did, I'm sure this is the one you've seen, the 8 minute
Hmm.
short, which is
That's
actually
right.
the opening scene of the film, and it's going to be the catalyst for the rest of the story. Um, that was like an overnight shoot in this amazing house, and yeah, it was where I met most people for yeah everyone apart from Jamie I met for the first time that day, and yeah, it was a really pleasant shoot, and we had no issues there. And then we did one other shoot. The second shoot I did, there was some technical difficulties, but the crew handled it really well, and we still hit our time. And then they did actually reshoot. They had to because obviously with low budget horror, there's always going to be a few little hold ups. But yeah,
Yeah, a
they
few little
shot it all
kinks.
now,
Yeah,
and
we've had many a discussion over the years between people turning up and there being no power on a site, or no running water, or lighting going funny, or equipment not arriving when it should as well. So the perils of filmmaking, but I think as we've spoken with others as well, having a team that when that kind of thing happens, not to be like, well, that's that, then we can't do it. Finding ways to get around those problems and work together to do them, I think is really the spirit of independent filmmaking.
yeah,
So whereabouts have you filmed? Obviously, if anyone hasn't given it away, we have, Owen joins me in having a British accent. So you're filming sort of in the UK, you down south in England?
yeah, so we're in the Brighton area,
Okay, cool.
and yeah, the two shots I've done, one was the opening scene in the house was actually in some almost suburban area that I had no idea existed in Hove, and it was like just yeah, it was just these giant houses in this really nice street, and I was lived around the area for most of my life and had no idea that was there.
And then someone says to
Um,
you, right, now dress as a murderer and go in here and have a look around this house.
yeah, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how grand the area was. And then yeah, the second shot I did was it was in the cellar of a hotel in Brighton. It was like one of the oldest hotels, and yeah, they had this really vast cellar-like basement that was yeah, it was great for a set, and
Yeah,
yeah,
there's
I'm
some
looking forward
wonderful
to the
houses
other
like
locations.
the architecture around Brighton and Hove. I think some wonderful locations you could use for all types of films. So, and obviously you have some wonderful outdoor scenery as well. So excellent, very cool stuff. Is most of your filming on there? Have you got much more travel to
I
manage?
I think it's all going to be around this area. Like, yeah, I think on Sunday I'm going to be filming in Worthing, and like, yeah, I think the other shoots have been in Worthing or Hove and areas like that. I think it's all going to be quite local, unless I
Yeah,
get new
uh,
information.
yeah. Unless you hear from the team tomorrow, say, guess what, guys? Angel investor just came in. Malibu, let's go. But
Brilliant. I'd be all up for it.
speaking of angel investors and independent filmmaking, I know you're funding the film via an Indiegogo campaign as well. Recently, the team have sent those things over, and I say we, I mean Ben, will scatter those into the show notes if anyone wants to learn more about the film, see some of those the teasers that are already available, and get back and support you with making the film. How much have you been involved in the campaigning so far?
Um, Very little for myself, apart from like spreading the word. It's all been like Reese and Jamie's project, the Indiegogo. Yeah, I've been doing. I couldn't take any. Yeah, any.
You don't want to take the
I've
credit for
totally lost
that
the word.
fine admin work.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm not responsible for any of it. But apart from beyond actually just spreading the word on social media and on podcasts, and obviously just trying to get the word out as much as I can. Um, yeah, but it's a great camp. We've had a lot of positive response so far. We've had a lot of people like join the team already. Quite a few people like becoming like co and executive producers where they're actually sort of end up part of the team, and like when there's award ceremonies and stuff, they'll be the ones, if it's in America, they'll be the ones actually going to the events, so they're actually very much part of the production. um
Cool. I was just taking a look across the board. I can see there are still perks available. Funding is still going. So if you're listening and the idea of a man born toothless but working his way up to a full set of teeth by taking taking it out on some people, then you can go through, take a look at the Indiegogo campaign, and we'll link it in the show notes. Some very reasonable things from either getting yourself a copy of the film when it is released to some other tangible perks, be it signed props and so on as well. So there is something for everyone's budget and levels of interest. If you, like me, enjoy supporting a bit of indie horror, go and check that out and get behind them. So, I mean, where would you? I imagine that once the film is completed, the next thing on everyone's agenda will be seeing where it can be shown. Do you know if the team are thinking about entering to film festivals locally or internationally, or is the idea to have a streaming release that people can buy or a physical release? How much has that been planned out so far?
so what I've heard is that the main full goal is to go for film festivals. I think
Mhm.
that's going to be the initial thing, and then hopefully after that look for distribution, whether that should be on a streaming program or physical media. There's been no mention of physical media yet. I don't know if that's something like Reese and Jamie are looking into in the future or not, because I know that's a big thing that horror fans are like, me even myself. I always, if I'm interested in something or if I really like something, I like a physical copy. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that would be a nice possibility in the future. But yeah, I think they obviously film festivals are going to be the first thing they go for, and then yeah, hopefully some form of distribution afterwards. Hopefully the film will be received well. Like,
Yeah, what I think is something that seems to be so rewarding for lots of people, especially in independent horror, is getting those opportunities to see your film, which you've worked on, appear at a festival screening. Maybe sit at the back there and watch an audience experience it for the first time. Yeah, I certainly hope that you get to see that for yourself.
no, thank you. I hope so too. I mean, we sent the short to festivals, and it's actually done quite well so far. We won a couple. Well, yeah, we I won best villain in one of the award in one
Oh,
of
there we
the
go.
festivals, and yeah, the actress August Porter, who was yeah playing the victim, also won best actress. So
Oh,
yeah,
very nice.
we've
And
done
what
well
fi-
so
what
far.
what
So
film festival was that at?
that was the Holly what? It was Holly what, but with a U as the
Okay.
and yeah, I was really honored to be nominated. I was really happy to be nominated because I've not ever been put forward for awards for things. And then yeah, when I found out I won, I was like, oh wow, this yeah, I'm not used to that kind
Yeah.
of attention for
Oh,
things.
you need to
Nice.
you need to embrace that, Owen. I think you should
Yeah,
be introducing yourself as award-winning villain, Owen Llewelyn.
yeah,
Get used to that.
I hope so.
To be honest, I would be announcing it before I walked into the dining room for dinner every day. So I'll have a couple more questions for you about the R.I.P. man himself. Let's think about this in the broader context of horror. So I get you to channel your mastery of this character here. So if you were yourself the R.I.P. man, and uh, for legal reasons, I won't ask you to talk about which celebrities you'd like to kill and pull the teeth out of. So I'm going to say if you were collecting animal teeth to fill out your thing, which animals would you think would make the most effective set of R.I.P. man's teeth?
Oh wow, yeah. So you'd have to go for a different one, obviously, for
Yeah, you're
him.
gonna have a full selection. Don't want a homogeneous set now. You're gonna want What would be your ultimate ones?
I'm thinking here. I'm thinking. I'm trying to think logically because do you know what? My immediate thought was like a walrus, and then I was just like, wait, that's too big.
Just
That's
one
too
big
far.
walrus
Yeah,
tooth.
that was too far. Obviously, like it. It's obviously it would be a great challenge for the R.I.P. man to attack maybe like a lion or a tiger or something
Yeah.
because obviously that uh, as good as he is at it, I don't even know if he could
And
he
you would
could
have a harder time
win
in the
that
animal
battle.
kingdom menacing them with with technology and so on beforehand, or the misdirection would be harder to master with an animal.
But I think, yeah, I think a lion, I think a tiger as well. Maybe they could be the two main
Two
canines
two
because I think they're two of the
canines.
best ones you can get. Um, oh, what else? Maybe a shark.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and also
he'd want the most vicious set of teeth, I'm sure.
yeah,
Like he'd want the most, yeah, from like the highest form of predators. So
there's a collection that could go on
bear,
his
a
wall.
bear, I
A
think maybe
bear, you
about.
see. Obviously, we'll, for the purposes of even for a hypothetical, we assume the animals would be fine because, we're big fans of animals over here. So, that entire set. So, and how about then as a horror boogeyman character? So here you are, an iconic. You're looking to become an iconic, um, boogeyman yourself. If you were to be placed in we've seen Freddy versus Jason. We've certainly imagined Gremlins versus Terminators. If not, you can now. But who would you see the R.I.P. man go up against? Who do you think you could have a good horror face-off against other iconic horror villains?
I'm gonna go modern. I'm gonna say Art the Clown
Oh, very nice.
because I think there's slight similarities in the fact that he does take a lot of pleasure in what he's doing, and yeah, which would lead it would either be Art the Clown or Freddy Krueger, and I feel Freddy's already matched. He's got his match, so
Yeah. You
I
don't want
think
to
Art
be
the
you don't
Clown
want to
versus
turn this into
R.I.P.
like
Man
some
would
sort
be
of
the
love
one
triangle, do you? Yeah, you want to keep things tidy.
because I think he'd want to face someone else who enjoys it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So versus Art the Clown, how would you imagine this versus movie going? Do you think it would be a Freddy versus Jason situation where they are enemies and become more and more enemies as it goes on, or would it be a Godzilla Kong thing where they punch for a bit but eventually become friends?
I think they'd be friends at first and then become enemies.
Oh, okay.
I think they'd have a fight. They'd have a face off, realize they've got a lot in common, get on, but then something will go wrong. Um,
Classic
I don't know. I
stepbrothers.
don't know if I fancy the R.I.P. man's chances though. I have to say, just because Art the Clown, he seems to be a bit indestructible. I think even like he's got some supernatural things going behind him. Where I don't think the R.I.P. man has that. So even if he wins the fight, he might
Yeah.
get. Yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna have a chat with Reese. Quick, mate, put Reese in some supernatural
yeah.
powers.
I mean, obviously, there's it's in Reese's power. He can make this fight even. I think, but like,
Yeah. This is your next challenge for him.
yeah,
Sorry, Reese, if you're listening to this, where all of a sudden your now lead actor comes back with some edit demands for you. Right, I'm gonna need powers so I can
yeah.
face out the clown, please.
This is what he needs to go into this battle. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Right, now I'm gonna close out with some of our favorite horror hangout questions. Obviously, we're all here because we are horror fans first and foremost. We talked about your horror history, so now I'm going to talk about your horror watching habits. So, when you go to watch a horror movie, what's your favorite setting? Do you like the cinema? Do you like to be home alone in the comfort of your own house? Snacks or no snacks? Talk me through your horror watching preferences.
I'm a fan of the cinema. Like I don't go as much as I want to, but I still go time to time, and I think it's still the best setting because I think our attention spans are killed a little bit these days when watching at home, and I hate myself for doing it. But sometimes when there's a scene change or I recognize an actor from something without even thinking, I'll start looking at my phone, and then I'll be like, oh wait, I have to rewind it, and because I missed something, and cinema doesn't allow that. It lets you get 100% absorbed into the film, and yeah, if I'm in the cinema, snacks as well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I do watch a lot of horror at home, obviously, but like, yeah, and watching it with friends is always a good way to watch a horror film as well because
Yeah.
it can make the tense moments more fun, and you can be discussing about what's going to happen and get excited together. Yeah, it's
Wonderful. And now the biggie. So obviously we're called the Horror Hangout podcast. So if you were in charge of your very own horror hangout, let's say you've got a mixed crowd coming round, so not all hardcore fans, but like, maybe you've got a mixed group that's coming around. I'm not gonna make you so extreme and say your nan's come in, but a mixed group of friends are coming round. You're in charge of the evening. You've been asked to choose the film. What horror movie are you putting on for this crowd?
Oh, I think it's something that everyone like a
Yeah,
genuine audience.
so people are going to be judging your hosting abilities based on what you're going to put in front of them here. What would you? I mean, you're allowed to want to shock people if you want. You're allowed to. What would you choose if people are coming to you for a horror movie recommendation for a horror movie night? What are you going to put on?
Um, I That's so hard because my initial thought is Scream because I just think it's such a watchable film.
Yeah,
Like, and I think that people who aren't necessarily that into horror might still actually really find something to enjoy in it. Maybe, yeah, maybe
yeah.
that one.
You will get no shade from me for choosing Scream for a horror movie night. It's perfect. It's a perfect choice. There are no wrong choices here. You're allowed
Yeah,
anything
I
you
was just
want.
trying to because the other one was things like Nightmare on Elm Street Part Three also came into my mind because I thought that's a fun one and really watchable one. But like,
Yeah,
when
it
you,
is. Yeah, you can't go wrong with a bit of Freddy. The Dream Warriors is great. The 4K restoration of the original Nightmare on Elm Street is
yeah,
phenomenal. Um, yeah, good choices, Owen. So, um, anything else you'd like to share with the viewers? Anywhere that you is particularly advantageous for people to follow you for more news of the thing? Where can they find you if that's what they want to do?
yeah, I'm on Instagram at Owen Llewelyn and yeah, X as well at Owen Llewelyn. Yeah, those are the two places to really reach me. Or yeah, yeah, I'd say those are the two places to reach
And
me.
you post updates on the films, I imagine.
I
So
do.
people will be getting shots of you on set, I imagine, in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, those I I'm still relatively new to Instagram, but I'm trying my best. Like actually putting things and yeah, and like Reese and Jamie are always linking me to things. Um there's constant updates about the film. As soon as any shoot happens, there's constant things, and I'll be sharing them and yeah,
Uh,
posting something myself as well.
Amazing. We'll put everything else in the show notes if you'd like to listen along, whether it is following up on when the film is going to be out, whether you want to kick in some support for yourself, or just to, I say, have a little nose and see how it's coming along. You can find all of those in the show notes. Owen, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me this afternoon. I will let you go and get into character, ready for your next shot. As for everyone else here, thank you for joining us for a special interview episode of Horror Hangout here. Thank you to the good folks at Acast for hosting the show. Thanks to our friends over at the Rusty Quill Network for having us as part of your fine company. And thanks for Taj Easton for our wonderful theme music. Thanks, everybody, and goodbye for now. Bye.